Evan Carter was called up by the Rangers, and he has raked ever since. That continued into the postseason where he's done really well. So let's dig into what makes him such a good hitter, the one hole in his swing, and something to watch for going forward. In 75 plate appearances for Evan Carter, he had the following line. He had 5 home runs, 16% walk rate, 32% strikeout rate, decent slug, and you see the really gaudy weighted runs created plus up over 180, implying he's about 80% above the average major league hitter. Really strong peripherals overall. Just absolutely love the slug and love the walk rate. And then you go to some of the underlying stats, and it becomes more intriguing. You see the barrel rate here at 10%, the league average is 8%, and the O swing well below the league average at 13%. Average is somewhere around 30%, right around 29. It's actually the lowest in the majors, minimum 70 plate appearances this season, and he also swings at a below average rate. The thing that Carter does really well is combines a selective approach with an ability to find barrels. The majority of hitters that have that selective approach, and emphasizing the O swing there being super low, are OBP guys, on base guys, who don't really get to above average barrel rates. You think of like his teammate Robbie Grossman is a good example. Kevin Biggio on the Toronto Blue Jays is another example. If you do get to a plus barrel rate with that good of in-zone recognition, you turn into like Mookie Betts or Juan Soto. And somewhere in the middle of, say, below average to average, or maybe slightly above average, is a really productive player. Someone like a Lars Nootbaar or Lamont Wade Jr., both really good hitters who make an impact for their lineups. So in a pretty small sample here, he set himself up, I think, to land somewhere in the average to above average window of that combination of O swing and barrel rate being a really strong barrel rate. And I think this hole we're going to talk about connects to the fact that he comes up to the major leagues and sees 55% fastball, which is pretty high for any player. The average is somewhere around 48%. Some of the better hitters in baseball get well below that 48%. So the league did their advanced scouting in the minors and were like, this kid doesn't chase, so let's see if he can hit fastballs. And for the most part, he has. So the league hasn't really got a chance to adjust back. But in relation to that heavy four-seam usage, I think the league has started to uncover a hole in where those pitches are placed in the zone. But let's talk generally about kind of Evan Carter's hitter before we get to that. On a broad level, Carter creates damage, you could say, in a small sample here, down and inside, as you see on these heat maps, which is a really nice combination for a hitter, because the obvious angle for a pitcher is just to probably throw him up and in with cutters or four-seamers, and Carter seems to have the basic tools to cover that, and he also seems to have the basic tools to cover down in when any right-handed pitcher tries to go probably slider down into him kind of outside of the zone. With four-seam fastballs, however, pitchers are starting to kind of just push him up and away in the zone, and you ask why? Well, there's a pretty good combination if you look at these heat maps. He's swinging there up away, or generally up in the zone. He's not doing damage on that up away pitch as we look at an expected WOBA heat map here, simply a damage statistic. And he's also swinging and missing. This is pretty much the only in-zone swing and miss we have on any of his heat maps, is this fastball up away. This feels like one of the most basic advanced scouting, like, oh, here's the obvious plan of attack against him moments, and we generally only get this with younger hitters before they start to refine these holes. And we see that in the last couple of games of the regular season and into the postseason, the Mariners started to really pound him up away with fastballs in that final series, and even some of the Rays pitchers in the wildcard round did the same thing. The good thing for Carter is that his discipline is so good that he wasn't swinging at the ones that missed all kind of arm side up and away outside of the strike zone. And there was also an encouraging piece that he got up one kind of up away in the wildcard round, which I'll show here. How he goes about fixing this is probably a better question for a hitting coach than me. I don't necessarily think he needs to do damage on these pitches up away. There's very few left-handed hitters that are mashing up away from their body like that. There's some flatter swing plane guys who do a pretty good job of covering the top of the zone, but they're not necessarily doing damage. For me, maybe it's more of a thing where if he thinks hit pitchers are starting to go fastballs and two-strike counts to him up away, that he starts to kind of take an oppo approach. But I don't necessarily think that he should do that in anything sub 2 strikes, right? Like his ability to pull balls in the air, hit them hard to his pull side on the inner third of the plate, regardless of breaking ball or fastball, I think is the key thing he needs to lean on. So I guess it's more of a 2-strike adjustment for me, but I'd be curious on other people's thoughts who maybe can see that it's more of a swing plane thing that could help him out to not swing and miss on those pitches up and away. And what to watch going forward for me connects back to the fact that we're seeing him get 55% four-seam fastballs, which is crazy. You compare it to a guy like Corbin Carroll in 2022, who came up late. He saw right around a league average rate of four-seam fastballs, and he saw a lot more sliders than league average. I think the league average for a left-handed hitter facing a right-handed pitcher is somewhere around maybe like 15-ish%. He saw like 22%. And that was a byproduct of the fact that he chased Corbin Carroll a lot more than a guy like Evan Carter. So the league was like, okay, we're just going to throw you sliders down in and see what you can do. And we've kind of seen the whole emerge of Corbin Carroll not being super effective versus cutters. But for a guy like Evan Carter, I just don't expect him being as good of a fastball hitter as he's displayed to see 55% fastball. I think it comes down to league average at least. I think he's maybe like a 50%, 48% guy. And I think the league, what it'll start to do is try to test, his discipline on those sliders. He's shown an average ability to hit sliders, but he's more shown an ability, I think, to take them off the plate. And I'm curious if pitchers become more willing to try to throw him spin down in zone and see if he can do damage on it, see if that damage that he does on it is worse than the fastballs they've really heavily been giving him. And if so, then I think you see that perhaps more as the approach. But again, I don't necessarily expect him to have a crazy out of zone swing rate. So the margin for error there might be small, trying to go down in on him with sliders overall. So that's kind of the thing I'm watching for rest of the postseason and also into next season. Definitely expect the fastball rate to come down against Evan Carter, but he has the basis to be a really, really good hitter. The combination of the O swing and the barrel rate is really impressive. The fact that that's the lowest in all of baseball, minimum 70 plate appearances, is really impressive to me. So thanks for watching. As always, any comments or questions, toss them in the comments below. I'm always interested in subs as well. I have more stuff throughout the offseason and hopefully a lot more content coming in 2024.